Tony Pascoe, I am so happy to be doing a catch-up with you. It's a real honour to see you. You've been through absolute hell, and it is through the court system that you have persisted, Tony. And right at the end of last year, you won in our highest court in New Zealand. Welcome, Tony, and happy 2026.
Thank you.
I want you to give a very brief summary of your background, just not the case itself, your background, and then we'll go to Marie. Welcome you, Marie, and Russell, just to talk about your own backgrounds and how you became involved. Very briefly, Tony, you live about 80 k's out of New Plymouth, is that right?
80 k's north of New Plymouth, on the northern side of Mount Messenger.
And your father built that land, he broke it in,
well,
didn't he?
yes, my mum wanted to buy there because she loved native and all the natives that was there back in the mid-1950s. And so I was born there and I've lived there all my life. It's a valley of natural beauty, of just so many species, ancient forest. It's not a farm that you make a lot of money of, but it's a lifestyle. But it's a lifestyle that you can live off. And when a NZTA come along and say they want to put a road and split your beautiful valley in half for a road and a gorge, it's very hard to explain what it does to you, because it's you have no home and where you've been brought up. And years before, when on the existing road there was land taken off where the existing road is now off mum and dad to make the road safer, and then a few years ago, probably 10 or 11 years ago, some land was taken off me to make the passing lane on the north side of Mount Messenger to make the road safer. So now this is the third time they've come along, and this time it's horrendous because they want to actually come right down through the valley, which is over 4 kilometres long, of virgin native ancient forest and an 18 hectare wetland with over 46 species in it. And so the last decade has been like living hell. And luckily, yes, there is people that walked away and I've known all my life, but then there is people that have come on board and fought strong and hard, not behind us, right beside us and right in front of us when stuff got really bad. So, but we, on the 18th of December 2025, after a huge amount of court cases, the Supreme Court has come out of 5 judges, 3 in favour and 2 against, of the delegated authority that has been unlawful for near on 30 years, I believe, in favour of us. So I really, really hope it helps a huge amount of people under the Public Works Act of when it is put on you, you've got to be extremely careful how you go forward with it, and think very, very hard about and very much get the right advice.
There is so much to unpick in this story. As I'm listening to you, Tony, I almost feel like I've got the honour of talking to... Have you ever seen that Australian movie, The Castle?
One of the second or third, reporters that actually come up the valley, and we got right up to the forks in the valley, and it was Dina Costa actually, and she said to me, "Have you watched the Castle?" And I said, "You what?" She says, "It's a movie from Australia. This is similar to that." I said, "I've got no idea." Then a friend of mine, a few months later, I've talked to them and they said, "I'll give you the video." Well, I cried most of the way through that too.
I bet you did.
Yeah.
I bet you did. When you talked about delegated authority just before we moved to Russell and Marie for their introductions, just what did you mean by that? I'm going to pull you each up on each phrase that you use, because you've been enmeshed in this for a decade. Many people don't understand even the beginnings of what they do under the Public Works Act in New Zealand. So what's delegated authority mean?
Well, when this first come along in 2016, the property group and an alliance of managers and bosses come along and said that we're going to put a new road through Mount Messenger. Well, back in 2014, John Key said they were going to upgrade the existing road. But anyhow, in 2016, they said, we're going to look at Mount Messenger and look at all these options. I think there was something like 27 or 30 options they looked at to put through Mount Messenger of different options of road. So the property group come along and said, we are the Crown, we're an authority for the Crown, and we're here to negotiate either part of your land where we want to put this road. And they give us a booklet and we believe them. But over a time we found out that the property group is employed by NZTA.
New Zealand Transport.
New Zealand Transport Agency. They're employed by them to go to landowners to try and negotiate their land off them to do any infrastructure. So it took a long, long time and a lot of work and a lot of study to find out that LINZ, Land Information New Zealand, which is under the Minister of Lands, MP Minister of Lands, they have got the delegated authority to negotiate with landowners. Not NZTA, because they're only an acquiring authority, and not the property group, because they are a private company that's employed by NZTA or councils to negotiate with people, in my opinion, under a false front. Because they've got no delegated authority to give you anything, to pay you anything. It has to be Land Information New Zealand, which is under the structure of the Minister of Lands.
So it becomes like a complicated ball of wool. We need to pull a lot of those strands apart. Extraordinary, Marie, to hear this farmer, isn't it? Talk with such authority. The work that you must have all done is just mind-blowing. But Marie, introduce yourself. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having us here.
Yeah, and how you help Tony.
So my name is Marie Gibbs. I grew up just down the road from the Pascoe whānau home. So the Gibbs whānau land is just across the hill on the coast. Our family's been there for generations as well, since the late 1800s. So we're all from farming backgrounds. And ourselves and our parents have also been affected by the Public Works Act, which is basically taking someone's land against their will by force, is what that is.
Have you had land taken? You've had land gobbled up?
Attempts at it, no, there's been no land actually taken.
But you've stood up for yourselves as well? Wow.
That's right. So I guess our parents did have land taken in a sense where the pipelines came through 50 years ago. So they took interests in land, which they took easements through. So, yeah, it's the same sort of thing.
So when you saw what Tony was going through, you had something to draw on, but you weren't deeply experienced in the law either, were you?
No, not at all. My background was I'd raised 3 boys. I've now got a 4th. And I had been working in a totally different industry. Worked in the agricultural industry, worked for Farm Source Livestock and ran their office where the livestock agents worked out of.
So very much a farming, grounded kind of background, but what made you want to get involved with helping Tony?
So my partner and I and our son, we ended up coming back home. We'd been living away for about 20 years and we came back home. Our father was sick, so terminally ill, so we came back to help Mum look after Dad at home, and we just threw in our jobs and rented out our house and moved home. Yeah. And then when Dad passed away, Russell, my brother, sort of told me what had been going on with Mount Messenger and the Pascoe whānau, and also it had been affecting other landowners as well, and the local iwi and hapu. Like there was other people affected by this project as well. TPG had, for example, knocked on Kui's door at Morco and told her they were looking at putting a passing lane and taking some of her land, and she'd rang Russell for help as well. So yeah, there was lots going on.
TPG stands for?
The property group.
Right.
So the property group is the ones that come and knock on your door.
And maintain that they can negotiate when they don't really have the power in their hands to do so.
Yeah, they come and say we are agents for the Crown, is what they told us. We've got them on video saying that.
And it's not true.
No, when we did a lot of research on this when, Tony and Debbie dealt with TPG for probably about 3 years.
3 years, 3.5 years.
And we got to the point where NZTA had come in under some licences to occupy to do some investigations, and they had breached the agreement, the access agreement, and we were having a meeting with the property group representative in, I think it was about May 2019, and he told us that if NZTA breached a Public Works Act agreement, the property group didn't have any ability to enforce it. And we looked at each other and we thought, well, actually, TPG don't have any powers under the Public Works Act, therefore. If they can't enforce Public Works Act agreements, then we're talking to the wrong people.
Yes.
And this is all part of this obfuscation, this kind of blurring of lines, so that I'm going to call us the common man and woman, so that we get so confused. It feels like it's just overwhelming confusion for you at this stage.
Yeah.
We're just lay people.
Yeah.
That not supposed to. We don't have to. We're not supposed to have to know all this stuff.
No. And was the TPG, was that tested in court at any stage in the court proceedings, whether they had authority or not?
Yes.
That's what the Supreme Court judgment's just been all about. So when the Minister for Land Information served the 23 notice under the Public Works Act, which was in
23 of the Public Works
Act.
And what does that say?
That is a notice of intention to take your land.
Yes.
So that is them proceeding to take your land against your will by force. So that got served on Tony and Debbie in July 2021.
And this is really, really important for people to listen to, because there will be other New Zealanders, Tony, won't there? This is one of the reasons you agreed to this talk, because there will be, who will be next, you said to me? There will be other New Zealanders who will get letters in 2026 saying, we're going to take your land and we can do whatever we like. And you'd better be warned, because look what Tony Pascoe went through to stand up, and it's too hard, so give in straight away. And what we're saying in this interview is don't give in, because if you won, others can win. And that's part of what I want to really tease out of this interview. So, Maria, I'm going to come back to a lot of those points. I want to introduce Russell, who's sitting here, your brother, or I want you to introduce yourself, Russell, because you're quite formidable in your understanding of things. Can you give us a little background on how you came to that?
Okay, kia ora, Russell Gibbs. Background as my sister Marie said, brought up on farm, intergenerational, been there since the late 1800s. I left school as soon as I turned 15 and went sharing for a few years, contract agricultural work, and basically saved up enough money to buy the family farm. And since then, we went through, immediately post that, we went through Public Works Act taking attempts from the Minister of Conservation and New Plymouth District Council. They perceived we were weak. We'd just bought the farm, huge mortgage, and we got one of the most beautiful coastal properties in the country. It went on the Air New Zealand tourism magazine and stuff like that. And they knew they were unlawful. It was totally corrupt. They messed a treaty settlement negotiation process for the neighbouring iwi into it. And they were actually, on the face of it, trying to take land for a walkway under the Public Works Act, which is unlawful. It's only for sort of infrastructure like roads. And we ended up beating that. There were, I forget how many court cases I was convicted with for obstruction under the Public Works Act for serving a trespass notice on surveyors which were unlawfully entering, and I won on appeal. I represented myself and won that.
Russell, what year was that? That's a really good precedent for New Zealand.
I can't remember the years.
Can you send me that, please?
The years all run into each other.
Be in the 90s?
So we're talking back in the 1990s.
Something like that.
Because that's one of the things that I come across, these landowners who feel they can't even say no to these bureaucrats who come wandering across their land as if they already own it. This is really significant. Is that precedent still being used? Do you know?
I would doubt it. I would doubt it. Like,
All right, I'd like to have a look at that. I would like to have a look at that. Anyway, back
so,
to...
So yeah, we had a lot of support from local tangata whenua. You know, I've got 10 kids and they're Māori and my moko are Māori, and we built a wharenui on the farm and actually got convicted for that, not having building consents, etc. And so the local iwi basically whāngai us into that, and we got strong support from people like Huirangi Waikiripura and Ratapui, and a lot of people came and supported. So I've been on the iwi taumata, I don't know, a long time, and helped with hapu and iwi development and advocacy and Treaty of Waitangi claims, etc. Successful ones, I might add. And I just, while I was sitting here listening to Marie, thinking, you know, successful in preventing a SIFS uplift for a newborn baby. I don't know how many years ago, she's probably about 7 or 8 now. And so, as part of that, being on the iwi taumata, Tony's wife Debbie's part of the local tangata whenua, so there was no hesitation from the iwi taumata to help the Pascoe whānau. And Homeowner White and myself were the sort of front face of that early on, and then, like Marie said, she shifted down and has been invaluable through, especially these court processes. But jumping back to court processes, we learnt early on, we employed some lawyers to help, but you run out of money very quick. And
which is part of the plan.
yeah, and once I started self-representing, actually started to win some, and you know, we lost no land out of that unlawful council Minister of Conservation land take, but it's gone on for 20 years, but we lost no land, and there's no penalty against them for the unlawful exercise of their powers. They knew they were unlawful, but so I suppose background on that, and we'd also, there's a Gibbs versus Vector for coming in. So what is it? Investigation, section 111A, entry for investigative purposes, and then we've had a couple of losses late in the last 3 or 4 years about what's First Gas now. It's the same company, but it's now First Gas Mitsubishi UFJ Banking Corporation. It's the biggest bank in the world by assets. They've just been given, their easement rights have extended beyond the 12-metre easement to all our land, which I think is totally wrong. But, ironically, the judge, the High Court judge that ordered that, has just had her Public Works Act decision against the Pascoe whānau overturned by the Supreme Court. Like, they are wrong in law, those lower court judges, and I think they're quite well aware of it. They know, or ought to know, that they are misapplying the law.
Well, I can testify to that from my own lawfare case, but what do you think is behind that, Russell? What do you think the bigger game is for New Zealanders? And it sounds like you're going to have another big case coming up, so people will need to follow you on that. But what do you think the bigger game is using the court system in this way against the common man and woman in New Zealand?
I think in the last 20 years, New Zealand has become subject to large international corporations. When they got rid of the Ministry of Works, I think in the 1980s, they used New Zealand companies like Fulton Hogan for projects and contracts, and they still had Ministry of Works supervisors with practical knowledge of managing contracting companies at that time. In the last few years, we're getting international companies like Heb, Downers, etc., and like First Gas that are owned by the Mitsubishi UFJ Banking Corporation, coming in with international lawyers, international precedents, and any break they get in New Zealand law, they can apply internationally and vice versa. And they are bigger financially than New Zealand itself, some of them. They are professional political advocates worldwide, and New Zealand is a very small puddle in the worldwide pool, and they're able to influence politicians. Like New Zealand politicians some of them aren't very sophisticated, I would say.
So this is dark, but then do you think with the courts, letting people go through these lower court systems, and we're about to get to your story, Tony, and suffer for years and years, 10 years in this case of this story, is it to demoralize people so that other people will not give it a go in standing up?
I'm certain that can be the only purpose of it. That's definitely the effect of it. And given that it's a systemic issue, it can't be accidental.
Accidental, you mean the lower courts making these obviously egregious, obviously wrong decisions that go against any justice. So the person then has to go on to an appeal, and they're running out of money, they're exhausted, they're demoralized, they feel overwhelmed by a massive system. Is that all part of it?
That's all part of it. And I notice people that go through, say, a Public Works Act taking, because we've helped, once you've resisted a taking or two successfully, people keep coming to you and asking for help. And the common outcome is that they break people down emotionally. One of the biggest stresses in life is the loss of a child, a partner, or your home and your livelihood. And those are the big stresses that affect people. And so when they're threatening people's home and livelihood, for example, with the Public Works Act, people are extremely vulnerable, and they definitely they create and use that vulnerability to get their outcomes. There's no doubt about it.
You're extraordinary, both of you. Marie and Russell, you could set up a business helping people doing this, and there would be so many New Zealanders who would just be eternally grateful, I imagine. Tony, would you second me on that? They're
Not just at the moment, because we haven't finished ours.
No. Let's come back to your story, because that's exactly your story, isn't it? They came after you so hard to try to break you. So when you first got that letter, Tony, take us back there. Did you think, I'll be able to manage this? I'll be able to say to them, no, I don't want this on my land. This is precious kahikatea and rata down there, and this is precious virgin forest and wetlands with species that may not be found in many other places in New Zealand. I'll just talk to them and they'll be reasonable. Did you have that sort of assumption?
Well, it wasn't actually letters. They started come banging on your door. They'd even come through the back end of your property and walk down through your property, a whole team of them. You knew nothing about it.
They wouldn't knock? They wouldn't say, can we walk on your land?
No. They come from the back of the valley, and there's a whole crowd of them, and a car pulled up the front and said, oh, there's people coming out through your valley. No. And there was DOC people, there was NZTA people, there was Alliance people, there was all these people, and it's like, what the hell are you doing here?
So just stopping there, we have to get back to basic manners. If they come on your land, you need a letter, you need warning, you need acceptance of their offer to come on your land, and you need a knock at the door on the day they come. Is it okay with you, Tony? Where's our humanity gone? All right, so this is the modus operandi. This is how they approach it.
Yes.
And what did you feel then?
Overwhelmed. It's like overwhelmed, and you can feel so lonely, and in part because what's going to happen next? You've got all these people around you and going blah 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 at you, and this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Hang on a minute, you're on my land. You're interrupting my home, my farm, my animals. It's like, what's happening here? To the lay people, it's just overwhelming, because they send all these people that you don't know, and you're just drawn from one to the other, and you don't really know what one's about, what other one is there for.
Did you try saying, I haven't agreed to this yet?
You've got to, we found that you've got to be careful of saying no, because then they'll come down harder. You want to understand what it's about. What are you here for? We need documentary of what this is about. We want to understand, and we want to be involved, because this is our land.
How did they respond to that? That's eminently reasonable.
No, likes of the, they'd come in looking for kiwis on the wettest week of the year, and I was feeding calves out the back behind our home, and this guy, big guy, and this lady come with a dog, and I said, where are you going? Oh, we're looking for kiwis. I said, I think you have me on, you're looking for frogs. It is that wet, the dog will never be able to smell your kiwi. Have you found any? No. I said, there's one over there, there's one up there, and there's one over there. How do you know? I said, because I lived here all my life, and I hear them. And so many things like that happen. And then there was another case of this whole crowd of people looking for skinks and that. And they looked and looked, and I said, I know where they are. No, you don't. The second to last day, they said, no, where they are. I said, yeah, I do. They looked. We found a tail, they said. So the last morning they come to me and said, can you show us where some lizards are? Within half an hour we found the first one. Within 40 minutes we had 3. They were over the moon.
Let's give people an idea, Marie, of Mount Messenger Road. It's a winding road, isn't it? Up a hill. And it's how long? About 5 k's?
It's 5.3 kilometres long, passing lane on the southern side and a passing lane on the northern side, with a 16-metre tunnel.
It's been there 100 years, right?
Over 100 years.
It's pretty small. Like, you drive to Gisborne through the Waiaweka Gorge and then up these massive hills. Mount Messenger is tiny compared to that.
Yes.
Like, you're over it and it's behind you within, 4 or 5 minutes.
A truck can go over in 6.5 minutes. I've followed them and timed them for ever since this started. And they say this new road is going to save 10 to 15 minutes. It's only 100 metres shorter than the existing road. So if the existing road is only 6 to 6.5 minutes for a 40-tonne or a 50-tonne truck, how can you save 15 minutes on a new road?
Do you know what this whole debacle has cost so far the New Zealand taxpayer, roughly?
Up till date now?
Yep.
They announced before Christmas $590 million for the central and the southern part of this project, which is only half the project. It was put to the Environment Court in 2018 for $199.6 million. That's all they could spend. Because the online route at that stage, which was option Z, it's option E they're using now, the online option they did of option Z was 382. But they,
million dollars.
Yeah, $8 million, but they hid the revised option Z, which was a kilometre shorter, over Mount Messenger, and it was going to be costing of $206 million. And only
why did
10%,
they hide that?
Well, my opinion of that is because an alliance has been put to build this road with no government intervenience of it, oversight over it, to actually look at the right and the costing way to build a road, to upgrade a road.
I just wonder, there's something there that we need to tease up, but I just want to get people thinking about that. 500, and what was the number?
590 million.
For a road that's how many kilometres?
5.3 kilometres, and that amount has only been publicised for the central and the southern part of Mount Messenger. So there's 3 kilometres in my valley that has not been touched yet, of the wetlands, of a whole lot of native ancient forest, of where all the species live, has not been touched yet.
So you're really looking at a minimum 1.2 million, I would think.
It's just
Billion,
for a two-lane road.
Two-lane road with no passing lanes, no lay-bys, and a 235 metre tunnel and 2 bridges. The bridge on the southern side is 125 metres long on a curved bridge on the damp, cold side of Mount Messenger that is going to have frost and ice and water on it. That's going to be... Mount Messenger, people don't die on Mount Messenger now because they go slower. It's the gate to Taranaki. For many years, people have said to me they love stopping on the summit or halfway up Mount Messenger. They can see Mount Egmont, they can look inland, they can hear the kiwis at night time, or they can just hear the birds during the day. They can stop and have a cup of tea. It is a tourist attraction like it is now. Now they're building a gorge road through a wetland, and it's going to cost $180 odd million per kilometre.
Per kilometre.
Per kilometre, way the costing is going now. It could be more.
Russell, in all your experience, have you ever heard of a case that is wasting so much of the New Zealand taxpayer money?
I think even Transmission Gully didn't blow its budget out by this much.
No,
It is disgraceful.
I think what it is that you asked a couple of minutes ago, why do we think they withheld the primary option?
Which was the cheaper
option. We can only, from the documents we've seen, it can only be because for contract variations. And meaning that they can put in a price to get a resource consent and then get endless contract variations to get the price up.
So they keep rorting the money.
They keep rorting it, and they just keep going back to the NZTA board and asking for more money.
And this is the New Zealand taxpayer paying, ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's why, that's part of the reason why we're in a recession, is because we're spending 4 or 5 times more than we should on basic projects.
There's no doubt if any New Zealander thinks about the cost of rolling out orange road cones, I think they're at least $80 to $100 when they're put out, each one. So when you drive past a line of road cones, you think that's taxpayer money going, and then you multiply it up. Then you look at this Mount Messenger thing. This is just an extraordinary story. So you had these people wandering on your land, acting as if they already had ownership of your land, showing complete disrespect to you, Tony. What was your reaction at that point? Were you just, you said overwhelmed, but was there the fight in you then? Or did you think, we'll just have to go along with it? I'm too little. There's only one of me and there's so many of them. What did you think?
I couldn't go along with it because I didn't have the information to say that it was the right thing to go along with, because there were so many other options, and that some of them we didn't know about. We didn't know about revised option Z until about 2022 under an Official Information Act that we got it.
So they weren't being open with you on the information rule?
On many things they weren't open with us, but they just hounded us with, like one of the licensed to occupy, Andrew Hopkirk from the property group was there in the afternoon. I can't remember which day it was exactly, and it was about 6:15 at night, and I had about 3 or 4 hours of work in front of me of feeding calves, and he said, you've got to sign this. I said, well look, you've got a farm consultant report that NZTA paid for to say what was going to happen and how it would affect us, and he said yes. I said, so you're going to abide by this? He said absolutely, and he said, so sign it. And at that time, we had a lawyer, that under the PWA we could get a lawyer.
Public Works Act.
Under the Public Works Act, sorry, yeah. Right. Get a lawyer, and so it seemed like it was kosher. The next morning by 9:30, 10 o'clock, there was a helicopter hovering around our calf sheds and over from our home, picking up gear and taking up on the ridge because it was too steep for diggers or anybody to carry stuff up there. Calves were hitting walls. They were
were scared.
Oh, they were just horrified. It's like a baby being in a cracker shop with crackers going off, and I was yelling at them to stop, and I rang the lawyer, which was Mary Hill, and she didn't answer. I rang her 5 or 6 times, and I rang Hopkirk from the property group, said, this is not what I agreed to, and this is not what you said. And he said, Rob Napier, the NZTA project manager for this job, said, we've just got to get on with it no matter what happens. So it was like, hell, we've got a hell of a fight on our hands. What do we do next? And we had meetings with the lawyer, meetings with the property group and NZTA. And then we found out that, like so for instance, one day, on a Friday, we had Rob Napier, New Plymouth District Councils, and I think it was Becca Carter over by the culvert talking about what was going to happen and the culvert out from my home to be renewed. Because I said, it is an existing road, it's over 50 years old, it's going to collapse. And he said, we are not renewing that. And I said, so what's going to happen if you take our land off us? Do we get a home? He said, you get a home the same size as what you've got now. If you want more, you've got to pay for more. I said, so this is apart from taking our land off us for the road strip and the temporary occupation. He said, absolutely. Well, we sort of celebrated that afternoon that, yes, we're going to get home. Yes, we're not going to be homeless, because your home is where you feel like you're safe.
Absolutely.
The Monday morning, I rang Mary Hill and I said, we're going to get home. And she said, have you got that in writing? I said, no, but Rob Napier in front of a couple of other people said we are. She said, well, Rob Napier just rang me and said, no home for the Pascoes.
What?
I said, pardon? She said, no home for the Pascoes. And then weeks went on, and I didn't agree with Marie and Russell when Russell and Homer weren't being involved. And so
They didn't want them involved.
they didn't want us to have support. They didn't want anybody to be there when we were talking through these things. Because you know yourself, when you're emotionally involved with something, you don't think properly, because you think about, what are we going to lose? Where are we going to live? How are we going to survive?
Your whole life.
How is our farming going to carry on? So they kept people away. They demanded people not to be there. And then we found out that Mary Hill was told if she didn't get a sign-up acquisition of our land, her funding would stop.
Her funding from
NZTA and the Crown would stop supporting us under the PWA, because under the Public Works Act, you are entitled to have a lawyer represent you and for them to pay, because that is in the Act of the Public Works, that is one of the things that they have to do.
clearly this is just all a game, Marie, isn't it? It's a game to try to slowly break down the individual, isolate them. This is a form of, I would call it gaslighting, but it feels too mild. It feels like absolute abuse of individuals.
They'll do anything to get the landowner's signature on that bit of paper. In 2021, when they decided, NZTA decided that they wanted to take the next step. They wanted a 23 notice under the Public Works Act so that Pascoe's land could be taken by force. So one of the first things that has to happen in order for that to occur is the Minister for Land Information, if he decides he's going to serve a 23 notice under the Public Works Act, he must cause a survey to be done and a survey plan to be lodged with the Surveyor General. That's the Minister for Land Information's decision to make when he decides to proceed. So instead of the Minister making that decision, what had been happening in practice is that NZTA were making that decision. NZTA would think, we want to take the next step, so we will apply for a compulsory notice to come on and undertake that survey. So when they served the first, the first notice in the process is serving a Section 18 notice under the Public Works Act. It's a notice of desire, and what that does is that's a notice that says to the landowner, the Crown wants to acquire your land, and before they can proceed to take the land, the Minister must make every endeavour to negotiate in good faith with the landowner in an attempt to reach agreement with the landowner. If he doesn't do that, he cannot proceed to take the land. That's one of the protections that is in the Public Works Act. That's one of the protections there for the landowner. So they And that's what the Supreme Court judgment was all about, that the minister hasn't been complying or satisfying his duty because he's been sending somebody that doesn't have delegated authority.
That's a brilliant summary there. And that bit alone of this interview, people need to clip and keep. In fact, we will do that as a clip, because if a New Zealander gets this kind of avaricious government gobbling up of their property, they immediately should go to that section 18, and say, look, I am to have protection. And the key words for me, Marie, would be in good faith. That
Absolutely.
means in good faith, doesn't it, Russell? Means open, transparent.
Every endeavour. Every endeavour to turn every stone to see if it's the right thing to do. And every endeavour, if there's an alternative, the Minister of Lands has to look at the alternative of not to take somebody's land if there's an alternative route or there's an alternative site to put a business or whatever without taking a person's land off them. It's the person's right to own their land, and that's my understanding of the Public Works Act. And the Minister has not done that.
That's absolute key, Russell.
So there's protections in the Public Works Act for landowners, and they routinely get deliberately ignored by, in this case, NZTA, other times it might be councils.
Well, if I just stop you there, we've already seen an example in this interview so far where they hid from you the cheaper option for building the road. And they didn't even give you that information of the option Z.
Put that in perspective, they hid it from the board of NZTA as well.
And the Environment Court.
And the Environment Court, and they knew about it.
We're talking about then, who hid it?
NZTA.
And the Alliance. And the Alliance.
But you're saying they hid it from the board of NZTA.
Yeah,
Yes.
NZTA management hid it from the NZTA board.
Who's the head of NZTA at this time?
At this time.
Glidden, was it?
No,
Brett Glidden at the moment is the NZTA chief executive, and Simon Bridges is the chairman
Chairman.
of the board.
Simon Bridges.
and Simon Bridges, sorry to interrupt Marie, Simon Bridges announced this road through our valley on the 1st of September 2017 because he was a Transport Minister for National, and he did it, in my opinion, as a political stint to get back in power, and they did not get back in power.
Why was this being driven so urgently, Tony? Why, do you think? Why weren't they listening? What was the ego that was driving this? Because generally when it's like this, Russell, you might have an input.
That's a good question, because the options assessment process and evaluation process that was carried out by NZTA in 2017 was driven by a date that Simon Bridges wanted to make an announcement before the election. So they shortened and, what would you call it, compromised their options evaluation and selection process. The sole reason given in the documents we've got under the OIA or Official Information Act, was to deliver that political speech on that day.
And they spent 12 months before that announcement, over 12 months, looking at all the options on the western side of Mount Messenger and on the online side of Mount Messenger. And in March, April of 2017, they sent an engineer and a team up to drill a geotech hole halfway back my valley beside a gum tree, not where this road is going to be, and put 6 or 7 CPD, it's a bore thing, it's a hunk of steel that goes in the ground and vibrates in the ground to see what the stability of the ground and all that sort of stuff. And the borehole, which took a whole lot of samples out of, and I asked the guy from Wellington, why are you doing this? He said to say that this valley is too wet to put a road in. My argument is that they did one borehole and 6 or 7 CPD holes and then announced a road in a valley, and they had no idea of what was in that valley. I understand after it was announced, when they come in to do a whole lot of drilling by helicopter, because they couldn't get diggers in there, it was too wet, they drilled 45 metres and still did not hit hard to build a road. Didn't hit hard, didn't hit papa, didn't hit rock. There's no rock.
Because these are huge, these are important wetlands.
Huge. It is a valley, a very, very steep valley. It's a long meandering valley. At home, it's about 17 metres above sea level. 2 kilometres back, it's only 20 metres above sea level. So it's full of sedges, rushes, and the water, and it's just full of natives all through there. They announced the road before they knew what was in there. So to us, that made it a political stunt to, hey, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Mount Messenger is broken, but people don't die on Mount Messenger. People love Mount Messenger. Truckies have told me, hundreds of truckies have told me they love it because they're sick of driving on straight roads and cars pass them 120 kilometres an hour. There's 2 passing lanes on Mount Messenger. They go slow, they use their gears, they drive. We're just about home. To get to the top, bring their girlfriend, their mother, their whoever it may be, we're home.
And it slows you down, it brings you present. But I have to say at this point, you may not agree with me, the three of you, but Simon Bridges should not be hitting anything if he's passing as okay this sort of very squalid project as passing it off to the public as something that is acceptable. I'm sorry, it really concerns me that he's now running NZTA, because what other squalid decisions will he be making? What other pragmatic ones? We have to register that as the New Zealand public and now all keep our eyes on him, because not only that, it had within it great and wrongful bullying of a very honourable farmer. So there are so many things for Simon Bridges to look at from this. Let's leave him aside. Russell, back to Section 18. You were going to say something before about that, and I wanted to just follow up on that.
Well, it was about the Public Works Act in general. There are protections within the Public Works Act that have been legislated in there to protect landowners. And one of them was talked about briefly earlier, and it was project people routinely walking across and into the Pascoe whānau land and knocking on the door, including at 6:30 on Sunday night when Debbie's home by herself.
What?
And that's an ongoing issue.
On a Sunday?
On a Sunday at 6:30.
It was Mother's Day.
And Debbie was to put pressure on.
To traumatise.
To traumatise, because nowhere is safe. Nowhere is safe for the landowner. We'll find you. And so there are protections under the Public Works Act, and we spent Maria and myself spent quite a bit of effort helping Tony and Debbie protect their home from this project in NZTA. And so if they want to enter your property, they've actually got to contact you and say, with reasonable notice, and that'd be a minimum of 2 weeks, we want to enter your property on such and such a day and for this purpose, and there'll be this many people. And it gives the landowner, who in these circumstances, it's their home, it's also their business. They have health and safety responsibilities for the people coming on and themselves. They have animal welfare responsibilities, and it allows a bit of time for discussion around terms and conditions. And in this case, and I think it's a systemic outcome, is that NZTA don't bother with that process. They don't give the landowner any notice. They say, we'll just go on, because what are you going to do about it? And so if you unreasonably refuse entry, they can serve, I think in the case of NZTA, it's a Section 110 of the Public Works Act, notice of entry. They've got to give proper notice, say who's coming on, what for. And you can object, I think, to a 111, you might be able to get conditions on it, and they've got to offer conditions, and their delegates have to be involved. And another issue that's come through around landowner protections.
Can you hold that thought just for a second? Can I follow a follow-up question there is, if they do march on, do you think there could be civil actions saying you are trespassing, you are treating me as the landowner with extreme disrespect? How dare you come at 6:30 on a Sunday night? I will sue you. Do you know if there's ever been a case like that, Russ?
I don't know that there's ever been a case like that. The landowner is in a very difficult position, because the people you would complain to about ongoing trespass are the police, and the police are actually a legal delegate of NZTA. So they have no objectivity. And so we put in a lot of...
That was done under key, I think.
And on that continued unlawful entry and harassment around, say, 6:30 at night when Debbie's home alone is one of the worst, is we had, I don't know how many times we would email back to the NZTA CEO and say these are the protocols for contacting the Pascoe whānau. Like, you stay away from the house, you contact this. If you want to enter the Pascoe's land, or you want to have a meeting, email in the first instance. It was so that the Pascoe's family didn't endure consistent harassment. Like, it's all day, and it's the uncertainty of it contributes to the stress of it. And again, it's obvious that's a deliberate tactic. Those people know the law. And you referred to it as courtesy, and it's a discourtesy what they do, but it's also absolutely unlawful.
And it's also psychologically, it's a psychological attack.
It's a sustained psychological attack. They did it again and again.
Would you get a reply to your emails putting in boundaries?
Yeah, I remember once, I forget her last name. Nicole Rosie, she wrote back, and for a period of months, they did obey that, and then they just let it slide, and it starts again, and we write back, and I think they might have pushed back on it once.
You're constantly looking at the gate. You were just scared. You were looking at the gate the whole time. You wouldn't answer the phone because you didn't know who was going to be on the end, which one of them was going to be on the end of that phone wanting something or demanding something or asking you something or whatever. So it was just a nightmare of you're unsafe in your own home and on your own property.
There are real resonances of this with the whole COVID rollout, the way Jacinda Ardern kept us on our toes every 2 weeks, telling us another 2 weeks, breaking everybody's hearts, stopping families being reunited, all of this. And I bring this up not just gratuitously, because New Zealanders now need to look at our government and say they are on multiple fronts playing psychological warfare on us. And it's very clear that there's a program out of America, MK Ultra, which people need to investigate. But I would say to legacy media, this is the role of real legacy media, sticking up for stories like this and calling the NZTA to account and following up with Tony Pascoe's story. I'll certainly give you the number if you want to do deep dives on this, liz.gunn@freenz.org. Were you getting any support from legacy media? If you rang them up and said, I'm being bullied and harassed, was anybody coming to your aid then?
Not really, no.
Because that's the one thing these sorts of psychopathic organisations hate. They hate bad publicity. They hate it.
No, it was very, very hard to get your story out there, and even to ring the police, it was like they didn't really want to know. Like, I had animals shot, and on a Sunday at 11 o'clock I got inside for a cup of tea on a Sunday morning. It was boom, boom out in the road. Deb said, that's just right. I said, it's a shotgun. It's a bloody shotgun. I rang the police, and they got back to me 2 hours later, and this young fella said, what story? I said, there was a shooting outside my house. And he said, is it legal for someone to shoot off the road? I said, beg your pardon? It is totally unlawful. Do you think I should come up and have a look? I said, well, they've gone by now. But if you hear somebody ringing again in a fortnight's time, I could be dead by that time, I could be shot. I went down the road and I found the cartridges of a shotgun.
So you basically got a drive-by shooting that they're explaining away.
What?
Like, that's what it is.
So
when
someone had driven by.
And fired the shots.
Shot two shots, shotgun.
Had killed animals or had just
a scare tactic.
to scare you?
Yeah.
Marie, what was Tony like at this stage? Did you see him absolutely breaking down, Tony and Debbie?
Cry one day and get up the next.
Yeah, and he would ring Russell or
You.
ring me and say this has happened, and we'd say, well, what, we'd come up with a plan. What were we going to do about it?
You'd sit around the table. You'd have a lot of meetings around the kitchen table.
Lots, every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
We went to a meeting in town, to some art thing in town or what it was, and there was Deb and I and Marie and Russell, and we're coming down Mount Messenger, and up on a little terrace piece. I was in the back seat. I said, there's a light up on there, and these fellas said, nah, it's not, it's just the moon coming through or whatever. I went home with it. I'm not happy about this. It's about 11:30 at night. I drove up there and I found a ute parked around a bank thing around by Washers Yards. So I went over, unlocked the gate up to my terrace, and I got through the gate and I heard boom above me. I thought, oh shit. So I thought, what do I do? So I drove up on top, up my track, up on this little terrace, and I see some lights up on the terrace piece up here. So I turned the lights off, And then they turned the lights off, and so I drove down this other piece and drove down towards the young grass piece away from where they are, come back to here, back to where I first seen them up on there. I thought, shit. I drove down the driveway with the lights off. I might see them run across the road to get in their vehicle. And I didn't see anything. So I drove down the track. And
So you're sitting there at midnight, wondering who is on your
yeah,
land
and whether I'm going to get shot.
and what they're doing.
Yeah, and so I drove down. I bumped the gate open, went across. The vehicle's still there. Shot up the Mount Messenger, rang home, and I'm trying to ring the police. And then I thought, shit, that vehicle's still there. They've still got a rifle. So I drove home. Police, the constable from Oakare, Kelly, arrived, and police met this vehicle at, I knew they had a scabbard on the back of the back seat, which holds a rifle, and they had an axe and stuff on the back deck of it. They met him at Motunui, I think it was.
Did you know the person who was there?
No, not at this stage. But then this is 1:30 in the morning. Kelly's sitting at home, and she was scared to go up there by herself as well. Anyhow, they found them, but the next day they tried to find the rifle. It was thrown out at Uriti, which is on the southern side of Mount Messenger, still fully loaded. There was a bullet in the breech, so it could have gone off. And we found out afterwards that that person had been sent up there by one of the negotiators in the Mount Messenger to go and get some meat off Tony Pascoe's land, and he won't see it. It's like, I went up there because I wanted to know what's going on, but it could have turned pretty bad. But,
Russell, what's your reaction when you hear that?
he's an idiot.
I know
I'm an
it
idiot.
And it's an ongoing issue in rural areas, and it steps up whenever you get Public Works Act processes.
It steps up. This is common.
Yeah.
People are paid to go and do things like...
Well, they're not necessarily paid to go and do it.
But there is
they're strongly suggested to go and do it, and they're not actually paying them to do that, but it's part of their job. There's an understanding that it's part of their job, because they're only there because of that job connection. Otherwise, they're not there.
So we are looking at really nothing is off the table. If the government wants land, not only has it got all the resources, it's got all the people on its side, it's got huge corporations in whose pocket it seems the government often is, against one man, but they'll also use filthy tactics of
nothing's
intimidation.
off the table.
Nothing's off the table.
And like
This is like the Wild West, Russell.
well, it is.
Sheep shot, planks stolen, electric fences stolen, threatened.
Threatened in what way?
Threatened the fact that people going past saying a whole lot of words that I'm not going to say on here. Name written up on Mount Messenger in the tunnel. You're a get over it, get on with it, you're stopping a job.
This is what they've done to you. You mentioned earlier friends have turned away and you've made new friends. I don't understand why friends would do that. Why didn't they stand by you?
Well, I don't really either, but
What
because,
reason did they give?
because they're helping you, I'm not going to help you, and I think you're doing the wrong thing, and why don't you just take the money? It's not about money, it's about doing the right thing. And that's the only thing that I've kept us all focused, I think. And we are so grateful after so long of support from all around the country, I must think, and Finland and Australia that have been in touch of, we've finally got a result after all these lower courts have done unlawful, and their lawyers, in my opinion, have told lies and done all unlawful things. And so we've got a result that hopefully will be in case law that will help people that are involved with it now and people that are going to be involved with it next. Are you going to be next?
That's it. Marie, take us, it's very complex, the number of cases you've had, but can you give us some overview? And then, Russell, I'd like you to do a bit of that as well. Sure. I mean, just for people to understand what it's taken.
Yeah, I suppose the first legal processes were the resource consents, the RMA consents and the designation. So NZTA applied for those in December 2017.
And that's consent to what? To take his land?
No, that's a resource consent to do the project.
Oh, right.
So
yes.
that was the first.
Okay.
That was the first. So that designates that's a process to designate Pascoe's land.
Yes.
So it does put a.
And what are they looking at for that? Are they looking at the suitability, supposedly the suitability of the land and...
They're meant to look at the alternatives that NZTA considered for the project.
Yes.
And one of the main alternatives that were like the best performing alternative was option Z. NZTA told their board that would cost $382 million. What they didn't tell their board was that they'd put all the last 5 options through a revision process and reduced option Z from 382 down to 206.
That's what Tony referred to earlier.
That's what they withheld.
That was hidden by the board. Has there been any comeback for those people who were in the management side of NZTA hiding it from their own board? I mean, the board should have sacked those managers immediately.
Yeah, you would think so. So unfortunately, when we got to the Environment Court in 2023, after we'd found out that it existed and it had been hidden, we put that fact into the Public Works Act objection to take the land, that process. And the Environment Court Judge Dwyer found that it was fine that they withheld that. It was fine. And the reason he gave was that, in his opinion, 206 million option Z was not viable or feasible.
In his opinion?
In his opinion. And that was completely the opposite to the documentary record that we got under the OIA, and we also got a discovery order from the previous judge, Judge Borthwick. She ordered NZTA to disclose all the information they had on revised option Z, on whether it was viable or feasible. So his finding that it wasn't was completely opposite to the documentary record of the time, because NZTA witnesses went into the Environment Court and gave evidence that that documentary record said the opposite of what it meant.
Judge Dwyer is an interesting one, Russell. I've heard his name before, and it hasn't come with praise. I'll put it that way. I gather he's retired now.
Yeah. I'd like to acknowledge Judge Borthwick making that discovery order, and unfortunately Judge Borthwick just disappeared after that. And
Just disappeared?
Just disappeared. We never heard from her again.
They told us she had retired.
And I don't know why.
Goodness. Judge Borthwick, if you are retired and you would like to have your side of this story told, we would love to honour you. liz.gunn@freenz.org.
So you mentioned Judge Dwyer, and I think there's some fundamental legal errors being made, and the court ought to have known what the correct legal process was. So on one level, and this is, as I understand, it's routine systemic, is that they will disguise findings of law as findings of fact in the legal process, and to make them non-appealable, because the Resource Management Act says you can only appeal on errors of law and not errors of fact. So like Judge Dwyer would make a so-called factual finding, for example, that the Pascoes refused to negotiate. Now the fact or the evidence was the Pascoes asked the minister to get involved with funding approval for negotiation, etc.
Was that under that Section 18 where the minister's meant to have oversight? Right.
So we'd helped Tony and Debbie write the emails, because they couldn't work out on the ground which part of their land was subject to the Section 18 notice and wanted a ground mark, for example, which is also a valuation requirement. You need to know what land's been taken and what it looks like to assess effects. So the documentary evidence, when the Minister for Conservation, Minister for Lands writes back, he refuses to negotiate. But Judge Dwyer from the Environment Court makes a finding that the Pascoes, a finding of fact that the Pascoes refused to negotiate. Nothing was further from the truth. And it's ironic that, I don't know how many years later this is, but this judgment from the Supreme Court makes a clear finding that the Pascoes did not refuse to negotiate at all. And those are fundamental process manipulations in the legal process. The rule of law is just being set aside by those lower courts.
Yes.
And I don't think it's an accident. Like, that's a fundamental legal right breach, is that they're denying you your right to appeal an error of law because the finding that Pascoes refused to negotiate wasn't a factual finding, it was actually a legal finding, to stop you being able to make a legal remedy for a legal error. And the other thing that is from what our experience has been is that there seems to be a commonality of Judge Dwyer's decisions. He'll make a decision usually for the developer or the council or NZTA or whatever, and then he will
Apply heavy costs.
He'll in his decision he'll say invite the NZTA or whatever to apply for costs. Well, under the RMA, that's where the costs are awarded at all. And in some cases, under the Public Works Act, they can actually be applied even against the winner if their conduct is rank wrong, difficult, obstructive. Wow. That's actually a specific legal consideration under the Act, where the cost should be awarded at all. But that is just routinely skipped over in that lower court. And so out of two lots of processes, I think Pascoe whānau have been costs awarded against them of $180,000 plus in one run out of that decision.
Because his fact says it was fair, sound and reasonable to take our land, even though it's not a fact.
And from the High Court, on appealing the same issue in a judicial review, which was 120 odd. So we're looking at over $400,000 worth of costs awarded against the Pascoe family. It's as a murder. It's a penalty. It's designed to don't come back into the court and don't anyone else come back into the court.
That's exactly it. Intimidate the Pascoes, but intimidate
everyone
others.
else.
So that should have been set aside, surely, when you won in the Supreme Court. What's happening with those costs? Where are they at now?
Well, we don't know. We've had no contact from anybody since that Supreme Court decision come out, so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
So the Supreme Court has made a direction in their decision that those costs will have to be reconsidered by those lower courts.
Reconsidered, so you have to go through the whole process yet again.
We think those costs are dead in the water. We can't see any reason why they won't be reversed, and actually the courts should order the minister to pay the Pascoe's costs. That's
Absolutely.
what we think should happen.
And I think because it's the Public Works Act, and the Supreme Court's found that the Public Works Act is a special act, that the courts, the High Court, when it goes back, should actually order the exact sum that have been awarded against the Pascoes, turn around and award it for the Pascoes.
Absolutely.
Like as exemplary damages or whatever. But
I think there should be far bigger exemplary damages, which is exemplary damages to make an example so these bureaucrats don't ever think that it's a wise idea to do this again. But of course it would come out of the taxpayer funds, not their personal funds. So these executives get away with it over and over again.
But I agree that on the face of it, it comes out of the taxpayer funds.
Yes.
But if we don't, as a country, as a community, penalise those bureaucrats for their unlawful actions,
Yes.
then we pay and pay and pay. Like all those budget blowouts, they're all coming from that.
Yes.
So if we don't sort the core of the issue out, we're paying as a community anyway, but we're paying more.
And it's not like Chris Pink, the Minister for Land Information, it's not like he didn't know what had been done was wrong.
Let's go into the story of Chris Penk, Marie. Tell us his part in this absolute debacle.
So he's the Minister for Land Information. He has been the Minister for Land Information since 2023. There's a comment in the Supreme Court judgment that he didn't sign the notice that the judgment is applicable to, which is true. Damien O'Connor signed that. But when Chris Penk came in to power as the Minister for Land Information, we contacted him straight away. We made him and his CEO perfectly aware of everything that had happened and gave him the opportunity to fix it. We said what's happened is wrong, it's unlawful, how the Pascoes have been treated, it's not acceptable.
Did he make any noises of empathy, of sympathy, anything that showed he cared as a human being?
Well, he's the one that's been the respondent in these proceedings. He has been opposing the Pascoes in the courts.
So when you
for his whole,
you didn't get any acknowledgement of that part of how horrific it's been.
he refused to meet with us because it was before the courts.
But he also, sorry to interrupt, Marie, but he also publicly put in the paper of what were those words he used?
So it was to do with those costs. So when the Environment Court came out against Pascoes, their decision was released, I think it was the 10th of May 2024, and said in the Environment Court's Judge Dwyer's opinion it's fair, sound and reasonable that their land gets taken. Chris Penk applied for the Pascoes to be ordered to pay him $180,000. That was his action.
He applied for that.
He asked the court to order the Pascoes to pay Chris Penk $180,000.
And that goes into the government coffers, but that is just...
But he also said in the
That is
paper
so punitive.
how bad it was for actually trying to hold this up. It's
Holding up the project was
holding
so
up the
bad.
project.
And these were people who campaigned to say, vote us in because we care about New Zealanders. And this is where we see how ludicrous these politicians are.
So when Chris Penk applied for $180,000 worth of costs against the Pascoes, we said it shouldn't be awarded against them, but we said pause, if you're going to consider awarding any costs, don't make any decisions until the Supreme Court decision comes out. Like, wait until the process is finished. But what happened was Judge Dwyer was retiring. So he didn't want to, Judge Dwyer decided not to leave that for another judge, which he should have. He decided to make that cost decision. It was the last thing he did before he retired. He did it the day before he officially retired.
He did what?
Awarded that $180,000 against the Pascoes. And 3 weeks before he made that decision, Buddle Finlay, who are NZTA's lawyers for Mount Messenger, hosted Judge Dwyer's retirement party. And then 3 weeks after that, he ordered the Pascoes to pay $180,000 worth of costs to the Minister for Land Information, when he should have just made no decision at all, quietly retired and left it till after the Supreme Court decision come out, because all those costs should be gone. But in the meantime, the Pascoes have had this hanging over them for 2 years unnecessarily.
Seriously, this needs to be made into a film, and a very dark character playing Judge Dwyer. I need to know how that affected you. By this stage, how were you coping, Tony? I mean, we're years into this torment of a man simply saying, hey, this is my land, this is my sacred place. You won't come and violate me, and I will stand up for my rights. How are you coping by this point when you hear about this?
Oh, it's pretty heavy on you. It doesn't go away. It's like a load that your back doesn't feel like you can handle for And when you spend time on your own, you don't want to think too much about things. You don't like being on your own, and that's why the valley and the wildlife and the water and that sort of try and keep you going. But I just want to go back to the start of this again, was back in 2017 when this was announced for where it's going to be. The owners at the back of the property, which is iwi that was treaty settlement, was in 2003. They were given the preference of their land not being taken off them under the Public Works Act. The NZTA said they would not take their land by force, it had to be by agreement. So they spent 4 years negotiating a settlement on their 20.9 hectares of that land, and a big pest management thing over 3,600 hectares. Their negotiations per year of about $500,000 to $600,000 paid to them, a massive payout to them, a working farm with a dwelling on it which they never had before, that we never had as another landowner. And I don't know whether any other landowner in New Zealand have ever had that preference of not having a Public Works Act put on them, just to have it done by negotiation at their time and then cost them nothing. All their lawyers, everything was paid. And when they agreed to it in 2020, the terms and conditions was some were under the Public Works Act, I understand, and some were side agreements. But then in 2022, before one shovelful of dirt was done on Mount Messenger, under the OIA, we found out about the revised option Z of 206 million, and nearly a kilometre shorter, no wetlands destroyed, on hard ground, still 2 passing lanes. They had the time then, and the board and the government, to say what is going on. This job cannot be started. And my other understanding was that no...
Who's they when you say they had the time?
My opinion, like to the government, the Transport Minister, the Environment Minister, the Prime Minister, NZTA board should have looked and said, look, we can save a hell of a lot of money here because we've already put a lot into seeing where it to go and whatever, but there's a shorter route on hard ground and we don't have to take people's land, which actually Tront agreed to, but then took the money for destroying an ancient forest. But
who agreed to that?
Tront, which is the iwi that land was taken off them. It's a subsection of Ngāti Tama. Okay. But also my understanding was that all land had to be acquired before this started. So they started this road at their own decision to take it when they might not get our land.
And that would have stopped the whole thing. And so they just drove. But that gets back to that fellow you mentioned earlier, was his name Rob, who said, let's just drive it forward. Was that his statement you said? What was his name?
His statement was over the licence to occupy. We've got to get on with this, and we've got to do all our studies to see whether this is going to work in here.
And what was his name?
Rob Napier.
Rob Napier.
He was the first project manager. Andrew Garb was the next one. Then Chris Nally was the next one. Now we've got Caleb Perry. So we're going through a few project managers.
Has any one of those been humane? Any one of those been ethical, decent to you?
No.
It's just devastating. This story, Russell, is devastating. And it will be being repeated over and over in New Zealand to different degrees, won't it? It will be...
These are their normal processes.
This is what they do.
Aye. And one of the other things that was talked about just a few minutes ago was their licence to occupy agreement that Tony signed late one night. And the next
was
day...
that when the helicopter came?
That was when the helicopter came in. So...
Did you properly read that through? Did you have... He came to you at night when you were on the farm. Did you have a time to read all the...
He would not give me the report from the farm consultant. I said, I want it. He said, no, NZ paid for this, so you can't have it. I said, but you'll abide by it. He said, yes.
Never, 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 never do that again.
I will never, never, never do it again. But when you're under huge amount of pressure and a huge physical and mental and financial pressure.
Yes,
You've
of
got,
course.
I've got to find a way. And they said in this agreement what they were going to do: a new calf shed, our cattle shifted to another piece of land, a house being built.
So it's carrot and stick. They're promising you things. They're threatening you with things. It's late at night. Never ever sign on that. In fact,
Well, they just didn't honour that agreement.
They didn't honour
that agreement, the farm consultant told NZTA, you can't come in with the helicopters and things while the calves are in the valley.
because it would scare them.
Yeah, so the farm consultant said you just can't do both things. You've got to build a new calf shed and relocate the calves, and then there was a clause in the agreement that once that was done, Tony and Debbie would notify NZTA that the calves had been
shifted,
relocated, and that would allow NZTA to come in. So
as well as all the cattle in the valley to be regrazed somewhere else.
The agreement provided for that to happen, but Rob Napier wouldn't wait. He brought the helicopter in the next morning, and Tony and Debbie just couldn't stop it.
How would he like that in his house? What were you saying before,
Well,
Russell?
there's a commonality within Public Works Act agreements, and they do keep them secret as far as they can. But there are never any enforcement clauses in them like a normal agreement has.
So if they breach, what happens next?
What you going to do about it?
Right.
And so there's no penalties laid out for breaches, let alone deliberate breaches.
So on that ground alone, no one should sign it until it's gone to their own lawyer or they've put in penalty clauses saying, I'll sign this only if there's a clause. And that should be probably standardised so every New Zealander could put that in. If you breach this agreement, then you will owe me $1 million. Something like that, and then sign it.
And going to your own lawyer is not a good enough protection because people are getting legal advice to sign the agreement just to make the problem go away without protection clauses.
Yes.
Because the harassment is that extreme and the stress is that extreme on the person, on the landowner.
You should draft up a clause that all New Zealanders can put in and they can pay you for that. How have you both done the legal research? I mean, I know that Tony's spirit has just been extraordinary, and I want to get to that part of the interview, but how have you both looked into all of the documents and the legal implications? What is it about these two, Tony? They're extraordinary, aren't they?
Oh, well, to me, that's like, I know a guy said to me quite a while ago, when Russell was at school, the teacher said to him, you need to be a lawyer or right up in Parliament or something, and Russell said, I just want to go home and shear sheep and buy a farm. That's what was told to me, and I'm going, and you know, he left school at 15, and he's got all the brains, and he's lacking the hair like I am, but he's got all the brains and restudies everything, and I'm down with him days and days, and they'll say these different words, and I go, would you explain that word to me, please? I don't understand that. And they rattle them, blah, 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 blah. So.
And you explain it so well, and you can only explain it that well if you fully understand it. Yeah, I'd say tremendous intellect, but there's something else going on here. You must have spent hours and hours, Marie, going through documents, going through every bit of minutiae to...
Not hours and hours, like months and months.
Years.
Every day, every hour. Like sometimes we'd have a court date coming up or a deadline, and it was just running out, and you'd just have to have like 2 hours sleep and get up again. Like you'd have to actually add another day to your day, so you'd have to have it's crazy. But it's been weekends, public holidays, like we haven't
Christmas.
this is probably our first Christmas that we've actually been able to have a Christmas with our family properly.
Probably since 2018.
Yeah.
Since 2018.
Yeah. Russell was involved in the Mount Messenger RMA proceedings as part of the Potama Kaitiaki Charitable Trust. That's
Resource Management Act.
Yes. So when NZTA applied for the resource consents and the designation for the Mount Messenger project, Tony and Debbie Pascoe were parties to that, and also the Potama Kaitiaki Charitable Trust was another party, and Russell was one of the trustees there. There was Russell, Homewana White and Tamawaru Hunt. And so when those RMA processes finished, I think they're out of about 8 appellants, Judge Dwyer ordered costs against Potama Kaitiaki Charitable Trust only. was $70,000, and he also awarded those costs against the trustees personally, which was unlawful. Like, the Environment Court has long held that it cannot award costs against non-parties. You've got to be a party.
Judge Dickey.
Oh, sorry, Judge Dickey. Judge Dwyer was part of the court. So Judge Dwyer was the presiding judge in that Environment Court proceeding. There was 3 judges, Judge Dwyer, Judge Dickey. Judge Dickey was a new judge at that time, and she had previously been a lawyer for NZTA. And there was Judge Dugan, who they brought in from the Māori Land Court. So as I say, NZTA applied for the resource consents in December 2017. The costs were ordered in 2023. That's how long it took that resource consent proceeding to conclude. So
that's just one part of this whole operation,
one
and
part of this whole project.
that took 5 or 6 years.
Yes.
So you're having to balance all these things that are going.
We've got lots of things going on at the same time, lots of parallel issues going on at the same time.
You must be the most extraordinary filer of documents alone.
That is one of my strengths.
And what other strengths do you think you two have? Do you knock your ideas around? Do you rub up against each other? Do you test each other's ideas hard?
Yeah, we do. I've learnt a lot from Russell. Like, he's got a lot of experience in the Public Works Act, and I'd never heard of the Resource Management Act before I got involved in this. It wasn't where I was working in at all.
Have you read that statute? Have you read all these?
I've read a lot of them now. Yeah, I understand a lot about them now.
And a lot of case law.
And a lot of
case law you've read.
Yeah.
You are literally bush lawyers. I've put this to you off air, Russell. Why don't you get a degree? Why don't you both get a degree? Russell, what's your reply to that?
Not what I want to do.
Why?
I actually like living in the outdoors, but I'm not beholden to the Crown or the courts.
Which is brilliant.
I don't swear an oath to them. I have obligations to people, not to the court.
That is such an important line.
So I guess what I'm doing as a person and part of the local iwi.
Your commitment is to the people at tangata.
Aye.
Yeah. That is, and when I swore that oath when I entered the bar, I had no idea the implications of what that is. And you have to resile from that and turn back towards the people. That is when you become truly human again. Gosh, what about you, Marie? Would you get that piece of paper? Because it does open certain doors, having a law degree.
No, definitely not.
What's your reason?
Having spent quite a long time in these judicial processes, like the hearings themselves, they're horrible. Like, the environment is horrible. When you get home, you want to go and have a swim in the river and wash it off.
Yes. Horrible in what way? So degrading, you mean, of our shared humanity?
Just there's bad intent. Like, when I first became involved in this Mount Messenger project, I didn't have any idea of what the judiciary was all about or any of this really. And yeah, I just had this idea that, you know, people were decent and kept their word, and you know, you could believe what people said and things like that, which was pretty naive, I guess. But
isn't it?
That's human.
Yeah, but in a rural community, that's what it's like. Like, the industry I worked in, which was the livestock industry, our bosses used to always bag us for not getting contracts signed and that sort of thing. But in the livestock industry, your word was your bond. The deals were done with a handshake and people honoured them. So to come away from that into this, it was just a real eye opener. And I really appreciate everything I've learnt from Russell. I've had a really good education, and other people too. Like, we found it really hard to get legal help for the Pascoes. I did a lot of phoning around lawyers and for Potama as well to get someone to try and help, and got lots of no's. And I was Googling up sort of Indigenous rights, human rights lawyers, and everyone I come across, they said no.
And what grounds were they saying no? Why were they scared?
Some of them said they were busy, some of them were representing other parties in the case, so they said there was a conflict of interest. Others just didn't really want to give you the time of day.
What do you think that is? Do you think our New Zealand lawyers are very afraid to take on government?
I think the Mount Messenger, I think it was specific to us. NZTA have a really strong PR team. They had 88 full-time PR people.
88?
88 full-time PR people, and they would just run all these newspaper media articles saying, you know, Pascoes were this and that, delaying the project.
Tony.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So anyway, I took away the Indigenous rights out of my search and just looked up human rights and come across Sue Gray. I'd never heard of her before. I think that was in about 2020 or 2019. 2020?
And she was responsive?
Yeah, she was, and I saw her giving her presentation. She kind of gave a presentation to an overseas UN something, and she said introduced herself and who she was and what she was about, and I thought she's perfect. So I rang her and she answered the phone. Like, a lot of people didn't even answer their phone.
That is just so shocking that so few will take on the system. Yeah. So then did you work with Sue right through to the Supreme Court? Or?
No, it was just on that RMA thing, and she just helped the Pascoes. So we did me and Russell were doing the Potama appeal jointly with Pascoes, and they were doing their appeal.
So there are so many arms to this, and we cannot, it's already, coming up for the 2-hour mark. We can't go into every angle of this story, and people can follow it in more detail. I'm going to put below the interview I did with you, Tony, 2 years ago, because that was very moving. But just give people that overview then of how many you think you've been through processes on this Mount Messenger Road alone. How many legal processes, Marie? And then you, Russell. How many you think?
I'm guessing about maybe 30 separate proceedings. A lot of them started as one and then kind of branched off. Like the RMA, that was an interim decision because of NZTA said they wouldn't compulsorily acquire land from the other landowner. So the Environment Court said, well, we're not going to grant resource consents because your project might go ahead. The Minister of Land said, well, we're not going to take the Pascoes land because your project might go ahead. So that actually, we think that assurance that NZTA gave to the other landowner, which has never happened in any other project ever before, was what really destroyed their own project right from the get-go.
That's extraordinary, and there's so many little stories like that to still fall out of it. In a way, Russell, it's deserving of a book. I mean, there would be people who are having their lands threatened who would like to follow every minutiae so that they can learn. Would you ever think about doing a book on this?
Well, as long as someone else wants to write it. But no, Sue Gray was a lot of help, and she helped, out of the goodness of her heart too.
That's very laudable. Yeah.
There's an irony around that too, because the Crown don't like her, and which is ironic because she actually used to work for Doc, and they took exception to her. I'll jump back to that. It'll slip my mind, but
the Crown takes exception to any of us who stand up and say we don't like what the Crown is doing.
Well,
they've become very tyrannical.
And I've regained my thought. There is that the 7th of April 2021. It took us months to get LINZ to actually meet. So they've got a live Section 18 notice against the Pascoe family, and we asked LINZ to pay Sue's cost as a legal advisor. So we're in the Public Works Act negotiating time frame and process. And the Public Works Act says you're entitled to have your costs covered. And so Lynn's would not cover the cost of her time, her airfares, or any accommodation. We got a written no from the Lynn's delegate. And so Sue came anyway. I paid her airfares myself, and she came. But to this date, unlawfully, Lynn's refused to cover costs, and they paid all those costs and more for the next door neighbour.
So what do you have to do about that? Do you have to appeal that and then go through another process? Is this and this is important because people need to realise, if you dig in, Tony, they really try to stymie you at every level, don't they? They try to put another mountain in your way and another mountain. That's what it feels like listening to you. Would you agree with that?
Oh, totally.
Well, and here's another mountain that they put in the way of the Pascoe whānau. So the Thistlehurst people, Thistlehurst Limited or whatever,
Thistlehurst
Dairy Limited, they have land taken for this Waikato Expressway. And they had just won a delegation case in the district court. And Crown Law did not appeal, but we're in the Environment Court, I think, for the objection process with the Pascoe family. And so Crown Law bring that delegation issue into the Pascoe court case, maybe with a judicial review or whatever it was.
It was the High Court one that...
And after the hearing, because the Pascoes are legally unrepresented, and add an additional issue in after the hearing. So Marie tracked down, well, who's Thistlehurst, because never heard of it, and got hold of their lawyer, and Thistlehurst offered to pay the Pascoe family's legal costs for the Public Works Act process. So what they did is insisted a clause into the Thistlehurst Public Works Act agreement that Thistlehurst could not resource the Pascoe's legal costs.
This is just bullying.
It's absolutely wrong.
This is absolute bullying. So overall, this is so complex and huge, and we're trying to give people a taste of it. Tony, when you went into the Supreme Court, did you feel that you had a good chance of winning after all of it? It's like you've been in a boxing match that has gone, 100 rounds. You're bruised, you're bloodied, you've been through every form of hell. You said in the interview that we'll put below this that I did 2 years ago, towards the end, you said you have nights where you lie awake crying. You just don't sleep. You went through that, didn't you?
Yep.
Many nights?
Oh, years.
Years.
Oh, years. Years and years.
As a farmer, you went through years of crying through the night.
Yes. And what I seen, what they did to Marie and Russell as well, hurt me badly, because they're the people that are helping us and supporting us and loving us for what we're doing. And the amount of time Marie and I have taken people up the valley and have cried. You know, we've a team of trying to help people and whatever. So yeah, years. But into the Supreme Court, you asked that question. We had so many court cases. We thought we had it so summed up of the law, of what we'd all read up and what Marie and Russell explained to me. We've got this, we've got this. And for the Supreme Court to grant us leave to go there, we thought that's big, because they will only do half a dozen or 8 cases a year, we understood. So we thought that's big. So we've got something here. We talked to other people as well, and we thought, yes, we've got something. So we went through the other court case and that. But anyhow, we put submissions, and they what's the word I've got lost here? But they put an amicus curiae in to look at
Amicus curiae, the friend of the court.
Yes, sorry, which was Sally Jett, and then she asked for another lawyer to help her because it was so big.
Yes.
But also Sally was also appointed in the Court of Appeal. That we lost that one, but I think she was under great pressure there as well.
Pressure from whom?
Well, I think from the courts and the lawyers on the other sides to, we want the Pascoes gone. So we went to Wellington to the Supreme Court. We thought, this is the law. We have to think we should win this, because this is the law. This is the top judges. You stand in front of some of the most important people in the country. They have to provide the law to the people.
You assume they have to be honourable. They have to honour the position, the high position.
Well, if you lose that, we lose everything.
We do.
You know, we've been through so many court cases and beaten up so many times and so many nights and so many worry. You're going to lose your farm, you're going to lose your friends, you lose your family, you lose everything. So you have to try and hang on to what you can hang on to. And you hang on to people. As Marie and Russell said to me, those judges, all the judges, they're only people. Yes. They're not, you don't be scared of them, don't be afraid of them, which I've learnt over the years, but you've still got to be respectful. So we went to the Supreme Court. Marie and I opened up in there. We had people there, including Murray and Margaret Shaw.
And their another story person is horrific of land being taken.
And a person from Wellington that's helped us in the background. And we opened up, and Sally Jett did her stuff. And then I think Marie and I spoke after that. Marie just spoke most of that after that. And then Crown Law. And they asked her a whole lot of questions, and she was like all over the place, Rachel Rolfe. And then we spoke again, and Sally Jett spoke. And it was said to me afterwards by this guy in Wellington that used to be a PWA expert, he said, "You've just won this." And I said, "Do you think?" He said, "You've just won this. You fellas have just done so bloody well, and you've won this." But
was he a lawyer? Or he was a public work
he's been publishing some opinions. His opinions are on Substack.
Can you send me those?
Yeah.
Put them underneath.
Yeah.
What's his name?
James Burns.
Good. We'll put those underneath.
He started publishing opinions on the Pascoe's cases in 2023.
And accurate opinions?
Fourth, was it?
Really good opinions, and what he said in his opinions was that he used to be the Public Works Act lawyer for the Minister for Land Information.
Wow.
So he was, our understanding is he was one of the, his expertise is in the Public Works Act, and he used to be a lawyer for the Minister for Land Information.
If you would ever like to have an interview about your views of how the Public Works Act is being run in New Zealand, what's his name again?
James R. Burns.
James R. Burns. I would very much like to talk to you, liz.gunn@freenz.org. So he came up to you and said, "We think you've won."
I went and spoke to him, and because he was talking to somebody, and I knew he was going to go, and I wanted to go and speak to him. We hadn't met him before. He was in the background. He'd been in the background 3 months before we even knew he was in the background, asking a whole lot of questions, and he says, "Won this." But then we stayed in Wellington. We come home, it's just hanging over you. And then when they got in touch with Marie to say the decision's coming out, you either got to be in Wellington or do it on Zoom, it's like, this is our last chance. If we learn this, we're stuffed, we're gone. And it's like...
And this was on what day?
18th of December, come out.
And were you all together when it came through?
Oh, yes.
What happened, Tony? Describe it. Describe that day.
Relief.
What happened? Did a phone call come through? Or
no, we're on Zoom, and the judges, we actually lost contact a couple of times with the judges, and they come through, and we thought they were going to go against us, and then Marie said, "We think we've won this. I think we've won it." And we're going, "What?" It's like, it's hard to describe. It's like how we've fought for so long and for so many court cases to go against us, and we've won something for everybody in that valley. And it's taken a long time to sink in. As I said, I'm just hoping this goes into case law and it's going to help so many people, because this has been so unlawful. It's like when they blocked up the bat holes in 2021, when the bats were in their bat roosts in the middle of the day of 35 bat hole roosts, and they got away with it. EIL took them to court over the Wildlife Act of killing wildlife in Mount Mesha, and they come out in favour of Environment Law Initiative. Nothing's been done. It's not stopped.
They just blocked up the bat holes and killed them gratuitously.
Well, it took us 6 or 8 months under the OIA to get that information. They lied to the likes of Robin Martin and Radio New Zealand. And it's like, when has this got to stop? We've got solutions now. They've started this stupid, well, too expensive road. We think we've got solutions now to veer it to the left when it's come out of the tunnel and maybe back onto the existing road, or stop the road. You can't keep spending money hand over foot into a black hole when people are dying in New Zealand because they can't get to hospitals or they can't get to doctors. Yes. We just come up here today and the road from Mount Messenger to Hamilton is disgraceful. They're not maintaining the existing roads. Don't build new roads, look after the roads we've got. Don't build new roads in gorges and in wetlands.
I want to move to the solutions for the final part of this talk today. What a powerful interview. But I do need to ask you, Marie, and then you, Russell, how you felt on that day. How did it feel?
Very happy. Very happy for Tony and Debbie. Like those, it just was such a big decision, but even like those costs hanging over them, that was one of the first things I thought about. They'll be gone. Those costs will be gone. It just very happy with the Supreme Court, very grateful to the 3 judges in the Supreme Court that upheld the rule of law.
And we need to make sure those judges are not gone. And we also need to watch some of the judges that are coming through. That young Judge Dickey that you mentioned had worked for NZTA. It's now up to the public to watch her decisions and make sure she is objective as a judge and not compromised. And this is what the people now need to lead our politicians and our judges back to a place of honesty and integrity. And I think that's part of what you've done. Those years of work, Marie, it must have felt such a vindication.
Oh, really good.
Russell, I want to go to you. What did you feel that day?
Oh, I don't know. I knew we were right all along. Like, we knew our concepts were right, even when we were losing, and you could read the judgment, and they're just misrepresenting facts, misrepresenting the law. They'll just omit your winning argument. They just won't mention the concept in their decision. I don't know. I thought a lot of relief for Tony and Debbie because they're the focus of it. There's a lot of work to do yet. But I appreciate the Supreme Court judges. They have made a positive legal ruling on the narrow issue that was put in front of them of who has to negotiate and the delegated authorities' responsibilities.
Under Section 18, it has to be the minister is responsible. So none of this palming it off.
And they have taken the opportunity and proactively laid out what the minister's delegate is required to do with compensation and negotiation. Made it very clear what their legal obligations are going forward.
So would you say there is now at least the beginnings of protection for the common man and common woman in New Zealand, the beginnings of it in this precedent?
Yeah. But the system, that's the nature of the people in the system. Those people that have been in there for a long time, they're not going to change how they act.
That's the
like there's people that need to go. They weren't fit to carry out the roles that they're in.
Well, I would start with Simon Bridges. That's my opinion. Just even hearing this story, he shouldn't be in charge at NZTA. That's my feeling.
And I'm thinking, well, is NZTA not being accountable to a minister, and their projects are routinely running double, triple, quadruple over budget, that you've actually got the wrong setup with NZTA altogether, not just the chairman.
When was that made? When NZTA was no longer accountable for this massive amount of money it spends to a voted in and elected minister?
In about 1987, our understanding is when NZTA was created, and before them it was the Land Transport Authority or something. So when they got rid of the Ministry of Works, basically, ever since then, which is about 1987, they've created statutory entities to operate our roads, operate our state highways. Right. They are statutorily independent. So their responsible minister, the Minister of Transport, cannot direct NZTA to do anything in relation to state highways. So in this case, what the Minister of Transport can do is in the State Enterprises Act, he can apply to a court to direct NZTA to do something. So in this case, where NZTA are clearly incapable of making decisions about this project, they've wasted all this money that should never have been wasted in the first place. The Minister of Transport, there is a check and balance there for him. He can apply to the court for a direction to order NZTA to stop wasting money on that project, stop spending the National Land Transport Fund on that project, which we've written to Minister Bishop's, Chris Bishop is the Minister of Transport. We've written to him and asked him to do that.
Any response?
No response.
Well, for a start, they can get rid of 88 propagandists in the NZTA. If they're doing their job, they won't need that. What were you going to say?
That's what I was saying. NZTA have that bigger budget because there's been no government oversight.
Yes.
They're a law unto themselves, and they've basically become unaccountable to Parliament.
That's scandalous.
To the point where the minister would have to take legal action to get a court to force them to do their job.
But then he won't do that. That's the remedy available to him, and he won't do it.
Why won't he do it?
He hasn't said. There's just no transparency. With this project, the NZTA board was presented with pause and stop options for this project. I think it was in 2023.
Late 23, wasn't it?
Or 2024.
Early 24.
NZTA will not release those pause and stop options to the public. That should be public information. The public has a right to know what NZTA are doing, how they are making their decisions about what roads to build, what options to choose, how much money to spend. All that information should be publicly available, and I think if it was, then they wouldn't be getting away with what they're getting away with.
That's extraordinary. That's a really sanguine, that's a really wise suggestion. Let's have your other suggestions. Tony, I want to start with you. Out of this mess, how do we have a phoenix rising from the ashes of it all? How do we make a better system? What are some of the things you want to see?
Well, I think they publicise and they put in the public eye that this is a government project. We don't believe it's a government project. It's an NZTA project run by an alliance to make a whole lot of money.
It's a vanity project.
Yes.
That's what it feels like.
Yes. So.
And probably a rort. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
It's a slush.
They've constructing the central and southern side of Mount Messenger. On the southern side, there's maybe a route to come back up onto the road after the first bridge is built, to come back on the existing road, or once they haven't finished the tunnel, they've done one layer of the tunnel, they're doing the next layer of the tunnel, come out from the tunnel, turn left, instead of coming down through the wetlands and destroy another 3.5 kilometres of ancient forests and wetlands and all the variety in there, they can turn left and come back onto the existing road, which is the option, revised option Z. It can be a win-win situation for everybody, but they've got to come and meet and talk to people. There's experts that we know that are telling us this will work, and they'll only come out of the closet if NZTA and all the government and LINZ will actually come to the party and talk. There is solutions to this. Well, there was a solution way back in 2017-18 when we said, you buy that piece of land, you put that shed up on Mount Messenger Calves, you give us a home and it'll be done and dusted. And the property group, Andrew Hopkirk, said no, and he said, you will never get a home out of me. So they blamed us, all of us actually, not just the Pascoes, all of us, for $350 million spent of us holding up the road. We haven't held up nothing. Yes. All we wanted to do is negotiate, but not just negotiate, be involved, be part of the conversation, make this better.
which is how government should run and how society should run. And they are you've described the cliched, arrogant, bullying, out of touch bureaucrat, corporate bureaucrat. It's absolutely disgraceful. There was a story that I understood, there have been some threats, have there not, to those who might be engineers, and I made a note here, consultants who might have been interested in helping you it was implied to some of them that you won't get future NZTA work if you help the Pascoes. Is that right?
I rang a person that was involved.
Utterly without integrity.
I rang a person that was involved in the commissioner's hearing of the Mount Messenger. After that, I just rang him on the spot, and he said to me that you look up such and such an act, this is the way that you will possibly stop this road because it is not lawful. But he said, I can't put my name to it because he said, I'm an Australasian business. He said, if I put my name to it, the NZTA, the government, will probably ban me from any work. Then there was a lady we employed to look at the wetlands, Sarah Roth, and a lovely lady that's independent ecologist, and her and her husband talked about it, and she said, I might not get any more work out of this. She said, but I can't let this lie. She said, I will come and do an analysis on your wetlands. And her and I spent a couple of days doing it. And she actually stood up in the Environment Court, PWA Environment Court, in late 2023. So she put her life on the line for the environment and for the people.
And to help.
And then there was another lady right from the start that I met in Waitara that's passionate about saving forests and wetlands, and naive like me. And we did phone videos and back the valley, and we got into trouble because I said I was on Facebook, but I'm not on Facebook. I don't know anything about that. Had threats over that, and I told her about this guy in Wellington that couldn't put his name to it, but he didn't agree with it, and she said, I don't believe that. And then she lost her job at one job and she went to work for another one, and on her CV she said that she disagreed with Mount Messenger and something, and they said, we're not employing you. We can't employ you because you disagree with what most of the country want.
Good heavens, that is a parallel with COVID. There are parallels with COVID in that.
Pretty sad.
This is where New Zealand's going so off track. So Russell, your suggestions for improvements to finish this very deep talk, but it's been inspiring, and I think it will help many other New Zealanders going through it. What would you like to see come out of this and other changes needed?
Well, I think there needs to be a cultural change within the way the Public Works Act rolls out. I think there needs to be a major cultural change. I think...
in what ways? Be specific.
Well, I think the current culture of limiting, knobbling valuations, which are an integral part of it, and removing heads of valuation. Say in the Pascoe family case, the NZTA had conceded their house would be, they used the word untenable to live in it, and the Environment Court agreed with the finding, yet they haven't offered them any alternative accommodation. Now, who is going to agree to an outcome where you've got nowhere to live? Like, it's never going to happen. You could end up with nowhere to live, but it's not going to be voluntary. So there needs to be a major cultural change with the dishonesty within the way the Public Works Act, the workings of it, the exercise of it rolls out. I think the judiciary need to make some changes. There's sort of talk that they're overwhelmed with cases. Well, we've had a lot of unnecessary lower court cases. We were right all along. The Supreme Court's just confirmed it after all these years. I think the Supreme Court, like, it's live streamed. It's all, justice can be seen to be done.
Yes.
You can see it.
Yes.
Those lower courts, not like that at all.
I agree with that.
We were penalised in one of them because we asked for an order for disclosure. Disclosures are right.
Yes.
Yet NZTA wouldn't disclose. I can't remember if it was NZTA or LINZ now. They would not disclose. We asked for a disclosure order. We got it denied. And then when the cost decision rolls out, they add penalty because of it, because you've been cheeky enough to ask for disclosure.
Yeah, it's disgraceful. It's intimidatory. So maybe that is a way to go. Have all courts transparent so we can go on a court channel and watch whatever proceedings are going on. That's a really good suggestion.
Well, I think the whole process has been sort of characterised by lack of accountability at every layer.
And I would add to that, anybody within, say, the NZTA who's wasting government resources should be heavily penalised personally if they behave in these ways where they're throwing their weight around, intimidating you, Tony. They should be answerable for that. Anything else, Russell, and then we'll go to you, Marie.
I think just overall it was a good decision, and been a long time coming. But appreciate the judges basically following the rule of law.
This is the first case, isn't it, on Section 18 of the Public Works Act? Is this
my understanding? Yep.
Section 18(1)(d), yes.
That's incredible. So this is a real precedent. Marie, what would you like to see as changes coming out of this?
Oh, I'd like to see some accountability, probably starting with the Minister for Land Information, Chris Penk, and then going down into the Land Information Department.
Does Chris Penk deserve to be thrown out at the next election?
Well, I don't think he's deserving of being the Minister for Land Information. We went to him as soon as he came into office. We, told him what was happening was unlawful. Said, the minister was abrogating his responsibility to NZTA and the property group, which is exactly what the Supreme Court has just confirmed, and we were just ignored. Like, he's the check and the balance. He's the protection for landowners.
That's what he's being paid to do. Yeah. That's why he's in office, and he didn't execute those duties.
That's right. So he's just been doing a review of the Public Works Act, and he appointed a panel to review it. And do you know who he appointed to that panel?
Let me guess, Judge Dwyer?
Close. He appointed the NZTA lawyers. He appointed the property group. We asked him to put us on that panel as representatives of landowners, so landowners could be at that table. Nothing. So I think the culture that Russell was talking about, where their focus is to make sure the landowner doesn't get what they're entitled to, is wrong. I think their focus should be on making sure the landowner gets everything that they're entitled to right from the very start. They shouldn't be making things so difficult.
Yeah.
That's been the whole problem all along.
We need to get back to that concept. Your home is your castle. Yeah. It's what you were saying, Tony. And Chris Penk, you need to go. You need to resign before the election, I'd say. But to the people who have previously voted you in, please don't put Chris Penk back in this year's election. What a shameful, shameful job you did. So we're going to finish with you, Tony. Final word to you. The hero of this story, very much. Yes, you've been supported by two great heroes and others, I'm sure. But you told me something very moving yesterday when we talked. You said, there was a moment, Liz, where I nearly gave up. It was just too much. What happened inside you to not give up, to keep going? What inspired you? And what was that moment about? Perhaps you could describe that.
Well, you've got a huge, huge amount of pressure on you. And even the lawyer that's representing you and different people that's against you put all this pressure on you, then you start worrying. If you don't accept their offer, if you don't, their option, not their offer, and accept this, we end up with nothing, and your life's down the tube. And then you go home from the court and from the mediation, and the brutal mediation, and you cry a lot. And things have gone wrong at home, and people are working on different things for you. But then you wake up, you don't really sleep actually, you might get an hour's sleep, and you actually wake up crying because you don't know what's going to happen. But then you hear a kiwi, and you get up the next morning and you feed the chooks and let the dog off for a run and whatever, and you go back to the court and they say, you've got to sign this. You can't sign something that you don't believe, because It's, you look in the mirror, you sign something that is unlawful and you don't believe, and you let not just yourself, the valley, and so many other people that are fighting down. Well, I'm only a little wee, no. Duncan Kendeline said in our table at the start of this, he put it across that you're a nothing, and nobody knows Tony Pascoe, and he said, so we're just going to get on with this. And I'm going, well, that's right, only a few people do know me.
Okay, so he said you're a nothing, you're a nobody. That's what has come through with the whole story, Tony. These arrogant government officials treat us like we are nobodies, but we are not nobodies. We are the same as them for a start. Most of us are better than them ethically, morally. Anyway, we have a far greater sense of community and society and human decency to one another. So, you know, if anybody's looking down on anybody, we could, but because we're the sorts of people we are, we don't. No. We just say to them, be better than you are. Stop betraying your fellow human beings. Imagine yourself in Tony Pascoe's shoes and stop treating your fellow human beings in such a shonky, shoddy, corrupt, greedy, unethical way. It is a story that, as I've listened to you, I feel so angry to hear how you were treated, but I feel such admiration for what you've done.
Well, it's not just me. It's not just me. Debbie's at home. Kelly, our daughter, she might be coming out the next couple of days. Kerry, which Deb had before I met Kerry, and the two grandkids.
How have they all coped? How did the family cope?
Not very well. The kids didn't want to come home. They didn't want to know us because they'd seen the pressure we're under.
How did Debbie cope?
Not very well, because she didn't know she's going to lose her home. We could have lost our relationship. We could have. There's all sorts of things. It puts a huge split in your life and your relationship.
You said something else to me yesterday. You said you've heard many stories of, yes, divorces, marriage breakdowns, emotional breakdowns, suicides, from this, in New Zealand, from the Public Works Act.
Yes, I was asked the first time the paper from Taranaki come up back at the Forks where I was going to commit suicide by the reporter. And I was asked 2 or 3 times by people since of so-called high standings.
Weren't you at one stage offered mental help as if you had a mental derangement? Yeah. They use that all the time. I mean, that's so boring now. Yes. The mental toughness of you, was it also because you wanted, did you have a dream that in some part of you that this would serve you and the valley, but also perhaps be a win for New Zealanders, for other New Zealanders who are being bullied as you were in the future? To be able to look at your case, Tony. Did you ever think of it as a precedent?
Probably not to start with, probably towards the end more, but I've been abused and knocked around for many years with different people and different things and whatever. But I've been threatened, going to be beaten up, drug growth, all sorts of neighbours, all sorts of things. But when you're backed into a corner, that valley, I built Hudson as a kid as an escape from my spiritual escape back there when things were bad. And when you're backed into a corner, you're going to lose your home and everything you've fought for your life, of what you wanted, and the people that you want around you. I'm not a fighter. I'm not an aggro sort of a person, but don't back me into a corner when it's not right. I might win this war, but I might win the bigger battle. I don't know. And maybe with the beautiful, beautiful people that from all around the place that have helped, maybe we've got somewhere now. A lot of water to go under the bridge, but let's just hope. This is stuff.
Can people help more? Just to finish, would you like funds in? Do you want us to put up an account for monies to come in to help defray all of the costs?
I don't like asking for that.
I would like to do that if we could put up an account. Have any of the 3 of you been paid for these years of work?
No.
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 Absolutely nothing.
No.
And I can't even imagine the costs that you've gone through.
Oh, it's the cost of the lack of farming, and the farm is just, it's a very hard farm of the other land that I farm compared, apart from the valley at home. It's a high maintenance farm because it's valleys, and it's just such a mess now because you ain't got the money, you haven't got the time. But it is what it is, and I can't be in 10 places at once, and I can't, you know, you can't afford it, you can't afford it. And people have got their own lives. People will help you, but they've got their own lives as well to live and families to look after. And that's where, you know, Marie's mum, me and Russell's mum, the time we've spent down there and the hours and probably the agonising she's gone through as well, of us being there arguing and bloody all the stuff been going through and all ours. You know, it's affected a huge amount of people, families, all these families and other families. But I think it's bloody worth it.
Well, I'd love to ask the public, please, if I know things are hard, if you can put in $10, $20, 30, 50, whatever you can put in. If we have, 10,000 people putting in $10, that would be an incredible fund, and that could be divided among the three of you. Each of you in your own way has been a tremendous hero, and what you're leaving to New Zealanders is a pathway to freedom from this horrendous tyranny. Thank you very, very much for today. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Marie and Tony. Thank you.